Welcome back to another video here, guys. And I've literally just spotted a walking stick here on the ground. Add to lost and found. Maybe I'll leave it up on the side there when I walk back. I'm sort of heading out here onto the strand. It's an area that I haven't frequented. The tide is very far out. But anyway, look, I could keep noodling on about that stuff. But I wanted to chat about, just share my thoughts on the India thing that's going on in Ireland. The last week now, there's been a big sort of a push by the media. We've seen a lot of coverage. The news feed is very much dominated by the situation for Indians in Ireland. Perhaps rightly so. There's been a few ordeals now, a few attacks. There's been other attacks which haven't seemed to get as much attention. The ones carried out by the Irish people seem to get more attention than, we'll say, attacks such as what we saw in Adamstown there by a horde load of African lads and girls. I don't know what that was all about. I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I'm getting a bit kind of used to it now. It's almost boring, isn't it, looking at this stuff? So yeah, as I've said it before, the media in Ireland, the political elite and all that, left-wing sort of, celeb types, creatives, the likes, they sort of hold Irish people to a higher standard than our, immigrants. So if crimes are carried out by Irish people, it's a bigger deal, much bigger deal than if the other way around. We see it a lot. So I'm not going to lie, guys, right? There's a certain element out there in Ireland now that will say, this India thing with, attacks on Indian people and Indian people coming out and saying that it's, Ireland mightn't be safe and all that. But there's probably people out there at the moment that kind of are saying, oh, well, good enough for them or something, or that it mightn't bother them to see this going on. I'm not going to lie. I like to kind of be straight up and, I don't like to see it. I really don't. I hate to see it. I think that, to be honest with you, I think that Indian people are a bit of a soft target for racial attacks. Is it racial attacks? Is there a bit of an overlap there between racial attacks and just general attacks? There's a big Indian population here now. Firstly, that attack that happened a few weeks ago, right, in Tallaght, which was, I didn't like to see that happening. I'm not going to lie, and the optics were pretty bad. Any fella that's sort of beaten like that and stripped down, it's pure nasty, But it's Tallaght at the end of the day too. I wouldn't like walking through Tallaght, to be honest with you. Well, certain parts of it. I know Tallaght is a mixed bag. It's very industrious. It's a very busy area of Dublin. It's got all sorts. But Tallaght, Ballymun, there's a few names that ring out to, we'll say, a Westerner, a Galway head like me, that kind of you'd associate with the more dangerous side of Dublin. Now, I said this lately in a video, but being from Galway, to Galway city and knowing this city inside out, there's a kind of a lower class side of Dublin that you kind of don't get to see in Galway. Maybe you do a bit in Limerick, not as much. And I feel that generally, like attacks, maybe riots that we saw that time in Dublin, violent behaviour, is it coming from people like me or you watching this? Not really. Now, another thing that's kind of changed as well, even though we kind of, in Ireland, we come from this, oh sure, everyone is Irish and, we were oppressed, they're oppressed, sure, we're all the same. But what's happening now is Indian people are getting a bit of a foothold on Ireland, and people are beginning to notice, and I'm not on about, the likes of people that would target Indians and bully them and physically harm them, but I'm just saying people in general. Conversations are happening now that wouldn't have happened years ago to do with Indian people. I'm chatting to, people who've bought houses and have struggled to get onto the property ladder. And I'm not going to lie, Indian people tend to get mentioned a bit. So there's a slight resent going on in Ireland because Indian people now are quite capable. They're generally good workers. I know there's an element there claiming and all that, but there's a lot of good workers, dedicated people from India and Ireland that just want to get on. And some of them are doing quite well and they're kind of good with money. They might be a little bit more frugal than the average Irish person. They don't drink largely as much, not all, some might do. They mightn't squander the money as much, so they might be better at saving, they might be better at putting together a deposit for a house than the Irish person. So that's beginning to get noticed. And I've definitely heard from people a little bit of perhaps jealousy, a bit of resentment, where, you know, Indian people now are kind of doing quite well. And it's not just Ireland that they're doing quite well, they're doing quite well all around the world. So much for the oppressed and all that, and disadvantaged brown people. It's not really the case. And if you look at even the UK, the schools and all that, how they're doing, Indian people tend to do quite well, studiously. They're studious enough. You know, now that wouldn't lead to the racial abuse. I really think the racial abuse or the attacks is coming from the rougher element in Dublin. The lower class young lads who are from broken homes, just trouble. Like, going to Dublin, I would expect trouble, left, right and centre. Man, there's so much activity going on in this water. It's unbelievable. Look at that guy there. Wow. How awesome is that? Isn't that lovely? You know, oh God, whatever's tickling my foot there, I have to move. Now, this was flowing really fast a minute ago, and now it's slowing down because the tide is just turning back in. But this is kind of crazy place to walk. So the shit is hitting the fan a little bit here. This is a result of multiculturalism, you see. You know, what I said there, I would expect to land myself in trouble. Like if I went to Dublin now to parts and I stopped somewhere, tried to get shots with my camera or something like that, or fly my drone, I would fully expect to get into trouble with locals or young lads and stuff like that. And even in Galway years ago, I was the target of a very vicious attack. Now, I came out okay, but my friend didn't. We were sitting outside. I had just bought a new car. Well, it was a second-hand car. And some young lads just took it upon themselves to start giving us hassle, and they asked me to drop them back to where they lived. And I didn't agree. Then they started getting thick with us and they actually smashed the windscreen out of my car. But the other guy, there was only two of them, believe it or not, so I ran after one of them. And while I was doing that, the other guy actually beat the shit out of my buddy. Now, you might wonder how the hell, a 15-year-old would beat the shit out of a 30-year-old. That's kind of roughly the age we were at the time. Well, firstly, my friend wouldn't be a fighter. And then secondly, the young guys, I heard from the police, they're all doing martial arts, they're all doing kickboxing. This was back like 20 years ago, so that they can hammer the shit out of people. So attacks happen. If people like me can be targeted, 6'2", 200 pounds plus, a young Indian tech worker with a backpack on him that might happen to have, a laptop in it or something. Yeah, I'd be worried, just generally. So there's an element there that isn't even racial, but there might be a bit that is. As I said before, there's attacks there that are happening that just don't get as much attention. A year ago there was a Canadian tourist walking through some part of Dublin, and two Romanian guys, people like to say Roma, as soon as there's a crime committed by Romanians, they always say Roma, as if Roma are the only who commit crime. But Romanian guys, I think, they beat him so badly that he died. And then a year before then, there was an attack in inner city Dublin, Store Street or somewhere like that, I'm not too sure, Talbot Street maybe, in which Stephen Termini, that time, American tourist, was beaten to pulp very badly. Nearly died as well. Irish lads that did that, two of them I think. I mean, there's viciousness everywhere, but it didn't have any protests. The guy that was murdered last year didn't have any protests. So it's not as big a deal, you see, when it's not brown people that are targeted. I don't know if you guys remember, it's worth mentioning, but a couple of years ago, there was a bit of a thing in America in which Asians were being targeted. We'll say the East Asian community, the kind of people of Chinese, Korean, Japanese descent or whatever, they were being sucker punched, okay? It was pushed out by the media at the time that this is racism and that it's probably just MAGA types doing it. But there was a bit of a thing going on with certain communities who mightn't exactly be your typical MAGA type, right? That were kind of getting a bit of a name for sucker punching. And we saw even the actor, was it Rick Moranis? A retired actor, elderly man, taking care of his wife who's very ill. He's walking on a street in New York. This black guy comes out of nowhere and just fucking levels him. We've seen it all around the world. So at the time, the Asian people were falling prey to that a lot, and it was being pushed out as, oh, it's racism against Asians. But realistically, it was just opportunistic blacks in New York. But it wasn't marketed like that. It wasn't pushed out like that, okay? And I hate to see it. I hate to see that India Day was cancelled. I really do. And, you know, I've had relationships with... firstly, I've spoken to way more Indian people than the average person, right? And the leftists will, oh, here we go. The leftists will joke at this bit, right? But I have, because, like I said it before, I did, you know, when I first got into digital filmmaking 12 years ago, whatever, I did a viral horror short, and literally half the views are out of India. So I always had this kind of respect for Indians and the way they kind of loved film and stuff. And I ended up having, you know, I used to get a lot of messaging. My film was resampled and shared out on many Indian pages. There was even one guy doing like a review on it, and he got like 6 million views or something to my video. He's like an Indian podcast YouTuber with a subscriber base of about 6 or 7 million. You know, I always found Indian people grand. Like I haven't really thought much about Indian people up until recently. You know, in these videos, I kind of addressed the fact that it's a numbers thing. It's a numbers thing, and that Ireland is going to be swamped. And we see it with the property stuff. Those videos where they show a, you know, conglomerate that are queuing up to get their first property or whatever, and it's just swamped with, you know, South Asians, Indians, which are the largest part. So I only feel that we're letting in so many. We've seen the government lately as well putting a push on encouraging Indian people to come here to work, and we're handing out work visas like Smarties, student visas, and they stay on, they bring their family, and it's just a sort of a numbers thing now for me, as far as I'm concerned. We've seen with Canada as well, the amount of Indians in Canada that have just increased so exponentially recently. So as much as I don't have a problem, I just don't want Ireland to end up a South Asian country, and it's kind of, with the way it's going, you know, that's on the cards. I've said it before. I don't want to bore you with the conversation now. Like if you reversed it out, if you will say were to bring Irish people into India at the rate Indian people are coming into Ireland, and allow for the population differences, it would literally be like 120,000 Irish people going into India every week. I think it's something like that, maybe 480,000 a month. It seems crazy, doesn't it, when you think about it like that? Is that right? There's about 300 times more people in India than there are Irish people in Ireland. So we're getting about 500 Indian people alone a week. That's not including Pakistani people and Bangladeshi people, who to the average Irish person appear quite similar. I know that might seem a bit racist to think that, and Pakistanis won't be happy if you think they're Indian. And some of them won't, not all. So look, I know there's guys in the gym, I've regular conversations with both Indian guys, and there's some Pakistani guys that are very Western, and they're cool guys. I chat to them regularly. And the Indian guys is guys into motorbikes and all that. And I love a good old conversation about motorbikes. Always chatting to the guys, right? On the whole, I don't have a problem. And I hope that the ones that are here can exist without hassle. But I really do wish that in Ireland here we we made a conscious effort to maintain the Irish population, because you guys know it as well as I do, the way things are going. So thanks for watching, guys, as well. Thanks to the supporters of the channel. I'm a devil for not putting links up in the description. But until the next time, I'll see you. Okay.